welcome to Cellular Healing TV. This is episode 116. I'm your host, Meredith Dykstra. We, of course, have Dr. Dan Pompa, resident cellular healing specialist, on the line, and today we welcome very special guest, Dr. David Kennedy. So before we jump into the conversation, let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Kennedy. Dr. Kennedy practiced dentistry for more than 30 years and retired in 2000 to work on saving his country from ignorant, unscientific healthcare policies dictated by industry's insatiable greed and willing government complicity. He is the past president of the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology, which formed to review, support, and disseminate research on the suitability of materials and methodologies used in the dentist practice. He is currently the information officer on fluoride for the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology, and he has lectured to dentists, physicians, and other health professionals all over the world on the subjects of preventative dental health, mercury toxicity, and fluoride. He's the author of the book, How to Save Your Teeth with Toxic-Free Preventative Dentistry, that provides instruction and insight for both professionals and the laymen on how to provide and receive toxic-free dentistry. Dr. Kennedy, has produced multiple documentaries, including Smoking Teeth Equal Poison Gas, which highlights the 20 years of pivotal medical research funded by the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology into the impact of mercury from dental amalgams. Smoking Teeth has rapidly become a bestseller for the Academy, and the online version is available for free viewing at IAOMT.org. And you can also learn more and watch for free his latest documentary detailing the dangers of fluoride at fluoridegate.org. So welcome, Dr. Kennedy. We're so excited to have you here and talk about mercury and amalgams and fluoride and some of the myths surrounding that and the dangers. So really amazing topics, and thanks so much for joining Cellular Healing TV.
I'm happy to be here, and I get to continue my quest to bring science into dentistry, and it's kind of tough because they're all anecdotal. Oh, I did this, I do that. It's taught like carpentry. It's not taught like a medical field. It's taught like a machinery class and how to machine teeth to the shape and this and that. And they pay no attention at all to how that material you stuck in the tooth might affect the individual. I mean, you'd think I was an idiot if I wanted to put arsenic in your tooth, but the truth is, dentistry used to put arsenic in teeth. They used to put formaldehyde in teeth. They used to put lead in teeth, and they're still putting. And this is the hard thing for people to understand. There are still 50,000 pounds of mercury put in Americans' teeth every year by the American dentists. And so, the problem has not gone away. It's diminished. When I started yelling about this in the early 80s, they were putting 150,000 pounds of mercury, and some of that's still in their teeth. Actually, it's coming out, going into the rivers and streams and waterways, and comes into the sewer treatment plant. That the mercury's gone through the person and then back into the out to the sewer. It's just making a mess out of our planet. We have no reason to mine mercury. We should stop taking it out of the ground. There are better ways to fix teeth today. There's no reason to put a mercury filling in somebody's tooth. The question comes is, what do I do if I got one in my tooth? And Dr. Daniel, we were talking a minute ago, is it that can be like walking on thin ice, that there are ways to take them out and there's ways to make yourself sick. And so if you're careless about putting them in, then the same dentist will be careless about taking them out, and that we're all individuals, and that we don't all excrete mercury in the same fashion. There are different genetic types in the population, and it would make absolutely no difference at all if you were the APOE4 and you didn't get exposed to mercury. But if you're APOE4 exposed to mercury, you don't excrete it from your brain, so you end up with the neurological problems. There you go. Isn't that nice? So they want to do DNA testing on dentists and not only have the APOE2 be dentists. Well, you'd have to have only APOE2 be the patients too, because there is the problem of non-excretion of the junk that we've been planting in people for 200 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say, Meredith, as you know, I'm just genetically, I don't get rid of it that well. That's why I keep myself clean yearly. Look, I have to say this before we jump in. That was a great introduction, right? You just set the stage perfectly. And, if you're hearing this voice, and you say, I recognize this voice, well, we call it the smoking tooth video. I've shown it hundreds and hundreds of times, and I said to you before we even got on the air here that, look, I think that video has changed more lives than any single video, especially in this area. But you know, I might be as broad as to say all of healthcare, because I say that because I realize how many people are sick with unexplainable illnesses, autoimmune, neurodegenerative conditions, you name it, because of silver amalgam fillings that are still being put in people's mouths and absolutely are coming out incorrect. And you know, this is a big topic. This is how I got sick, and all of my viewers know that, but there's always new viewers every week and listeners. And I want to say, look, you know, I was going around, Doc, very normal. And I was training at the highest level possible. And, you know, I was my most fit part of my life, I'd have to say. And all of a sudden, I have fatigue. All of a sudden, I have insomnia, anxiety, digestive problems, allergic to the planet, irritability, mood swings, thyroid issues, adrenal issues, you name it. And after years of trying to address the thyroid, address the adrenals, address my GI with no avail, some things getting better, some things worse, all the insomnia, and I finally come across Mad Hatter's disease. Think, this is it. I run a blood test. Normal. Darn. A year or so later, an endocrinologist says, I think you have mercury poisoning. I said, I thought so too. I was wrong. He says, do this test. Sure enough, mercury off the chart, embedded into my tissue, and lo and behold, I get the rest of my amalgams out because I had gold and silver in, which I know you'll talk about, which led to mercury vapor going into my brain. But I got it out of my body, I got it out of my mouth first safely, got it out of my body, and ultimately I got it out of my brain. And that's how I'm here, Doc. So you changed my life because I saw the video. Thank you. But with that said, you know, listen, I could talk about this subject for 5 hours, but I want to talk a little bit about it from your perspective. How does it come out safely? What about gold? What about galvanism and all those topics?
Okay, the reason you got sick is not just because you had 2 teeth worked on. It's because you had chronic exposure for 20 years. From the time you were a kid, you start out clean, you're not sick. So you had, and the theory on this is like a bathtub with a plugged drain. Is that the faucet's dripping? It doesn't overflow the first day or the second day or the third day, but eventually the water starts seeping through the ceiling and the kitchen. So that's the threshold theory of toxicity. And it doesn't actually always apply, but what happens when you get a tooth worked on, unless you're protected, it's like turning the faucet on full blast. And then it really overflows, and that's when you collapse and you end up with a litany of symptoms. Some dentists have said, oh, it couldn't possibly be the mercury because it's so many things wrong. Well, mercury destroys everything we know. It destroys all your lipid membranes. It destroys all your metabolism. It ruins the gut flora in your intestines, so you end up...
You froze.
By these things. It's why we don't use those heavy metals. That's why we have to contain them and dispose of them. The smoking teeth was, I tried to film that on 2 earlier occasions, and once in Texas and at another IMT meeting. And Roger Eichmann would just show up and he'd say, you want to see something funny? And he would demonstrate that. And we were in London at the in England at Oxford, and the library, and that the library at Oxford has no windows. It has only light in there. They said lights out for the demonstration, and the only light in the whole place was an exit sign back by the exit, and the room was pitch black. You could literally could not see your hand in front of your face. Perfect for filming. I had a tripod. I went in on his hands, and we just did it live right there. And so people you can see how the dentists love it. You know, they go on YouTube, they read the blog. You know, oh, that's got to be fake. Well, I wish I was good enough to fake it, but
well, tell them what happened. I know the viewers haven't seen the video, so just give a brief, thing of what the video is about.
Well, Roger takes these teeth out of a plastic bag and he rubs it with a pencil eraser and holds it in front of a 253.7 angstrom light, and that is the wavelength of mercury. So wherever mercury vapor is, it creates a shadow on a background. So you can see he holds this tooth that he's rubbed with a pencil eraser in front of his background. It looks like he's holding a cigarette. There's all this smoke coming off of there. So then he takes his pocket knife and whacks at it a couple times, and it smokes again. And he takes it and dips it in warm water, then dries it and holds it in front. And then, oh, it's got to be water. Well, duh, you can't see water at 253.7 angstrom light. But it's got to be water. Yeah, I can't tell you. There's got to be 70 or 80 different times that they've said it's water. And then I have to go back and I got to explain them, send them to Wikipedia. I said, you need to research atomic absorption because you can't see water in this kind of wavelength, blah, blah, blah. And there's and one guy says, oh, well, the tooth would dissolve away. So I had to do the math for him. Is that if you got 10 fillings, like I had 13, so if you had, but the math is easier with 10, you have enough mercury in you to give you the EPA maximum allowable dose for a millennium.
Whoa.
We're not going to live to be a millennium. So it can leak, and it leaks about half the stuff off in about 25 years. But so you've got your millennium, you got your 500-year dose in just about 25 years. So.
You know, Doc, it amazes me because I speak at all these, like you do, you know, these health conferences, you know, and all the healthy doctors are there, right? It's like, and I can't believe how many still have silver fillings in their mouth. I can't believe it. It is astounding to me that they allow even one filling in their mouth vaporizing mercury into the brain continually. And that one filling, as long as it's there, it shuts down that stuff from coming out of the brain.
Well, the other thing is that back to the threshold theory, is as long as that faucet continues to drip, you're going to continue to be sick.
Absolutely.
And you know, but what people say to me is, well, I don't have any symptoms. And I had a dentist friend of mine who went to a dental school where they didn't have vacuum. It was the University of Pacific in San Francisco, and they were drilling high drive, which is horrible. But anyway, and his wife always made fun of him because he had a tick. He had an eye that would and a head that would twitch. And he said, well, you know, I still use mercury, and it doesn't bother me at all. I said, is Alan Fudd around here with his camera or something? And I said, here you're talking with a neurological tick, and you're saying you don't have any symptoms. And he said, is that related to that? And I said, uh-huh. And when you actually measure dentists and dental assistants, they have lots more of those, and you can measure their mercury in a challenge, and they have lots of that too, and it's related to the number of ticks that they have and their memory loss, and I went through the whole litany of tests that you can run on people that are sophisticated. It's not like, well, I didn't notice nothing. And so you actually have to do tests to show that what's happening is your neurological system is deteriorating. And that's what they've shown on dentists, dental personnel. You know, you cannot legally teach dental students to use mercury. I've got a whole series of letters back and forth between me and Janet Napolitano, the director of the UC system, and the people at UCLA, where they say, well, we get to use OSHA standards on our students. And I wrote OSHA, and I said, can they use OSHA standards on students? They said, no, students are protected by the laws in place to protect the environment. Well, we have to, because we couldn't teach this material if we didn't have students exposed to mercury. I'm sorry, don't teach the material.
Listen, I know personally people that went to dental school and came out sick and had to quit. So where are the lawsuits? Where are the lawsuits?
Well, you know, they should be flying off the table, but you know you can't get the sick person is too sick to sue. It's Dr. Barnes sued Kerr for selling him dental filling material that made him sick, and Kerr won the lawsuit. They said, no, we told you it was poison. It had a skull and crossbones on the box, and you opened the box, you dummy.
Yeah.
And so there is no excuse for the dental schools to open a box with skull and crossbones, not tell the students that they're going to be exposed to mercury, not tell the women they're going to be rendered infertile, and have birth defect children as a result. This is all in the scientific literature for the last 35 years.
Right under the skull and crossbones, it says, keep out of the hands of children. Well, we're keeping it out of their hands. We're putting it in their mouth, for goodness sake, in an acid base. How brilliant is that, Doc? How do they misread this?
Well, you know, like I said, that one of the reasons I retired from dentistry was so I could work on bringing science into the field of oral medicine and toxicology, because it's so unscientific to put a toxic material in somebody's tooth. Period. And so they basically, when the third amalgam war started back about 35, 40 years ago, that they went immediately to what I call the cigarette defense. It's called proof of causation. You can't prove that caused this, was the argument forever on cigarettes. They're still making that argument on mercury fillings. However, that argument fails because we have proven that caused this. That they did a horribly unethical experiment that the United States still needs to go back and fix. They put mercury fillings in orphans in Portugal. And after 5 years, they published it in the Journal of the American Medical Association, this grandiose article, which made all these claims about how safe this stuff was. But you look at the data doesn't show it's safe. The data showed the opposite. Yeah. And when the data actually was released, because it's a government study, they tried to hide the data, they couldn't. And they showed that there was a dose-dependent, one filling, some harm, 10 fillings, more harm, 20 fillings, lots of harm to the kidneys. A dose-dependent injury to the kidney based upon the number of fillings in the children's teeth. It says in the informed consent was signed, 170 of them were signed by one person. So I don't think they really got, and the word mercury did not appear in the informed consent. Yeah. Except in the list of tests that they were running. So it was a horribly unethical experiment, and those children were injured. Those children are young adults now. They still have the kidney injury. They still have the mercury fillings. It says in the contract that the National Institute of Craniofacial Research will assume responsibility for correcting that. Are they?
It's insane. Joe Mercola, who we just interviewed, his kidneys were damaged from amalgam filling. You know, it's remarkable, and of course it vaporizes into your brain every day. Hey, remember I remember a gentleman bringing to one of my seminars some years ago. They're on nuclear submarines, or maybe any submarines, and it measures mercury vapor, right? So he put it in people's mouths at the seminar. They breathed. People that had fillings, I mean, this thing went off the chart. People that didn't have fillings, massive difference, right? And then, of course, he would have to drink hot coffee or chew, and of course, it would go up even higher. That vapor goes into the brain, turns into inorganic mercury, and it's locked there until we do something about it. And Doc, that's what I'm passionate about, and that's what I teach, because that's how I got my life back. I want you to talk a little bit about what happened to me and what's happening to so many people unknowingly. Is galvanism. They put gold in. I still had fillings in. People have different other metals in their mouth through bridges and who knows, retainers. But tell us a little bit about that.
Well, if you look at how the human body is built in the first place, it doesn't have heavy metals in it. It has light metals. It has calcium and sodium and potassium and the light metals in it. But you don't have a lot of mercury and lead and cadmium and the heavy metals in your body. That's just not part of the way that the human body is designed. And part of the reason is that there's so much energy in those metals, it'll screw up the way you run. So what happens is galvanism is where there's an electrical current between one metal and another. Well, gold is a nice anode, so it'll attract all that mercury all day long. And then you got your mercury, silver, copper, zinc, and tin. Those fillings that are in your teeth are not one thing. They're a mixture. Basically, it's a gel of a solid mixture of metal. It's not an alloy. The dentists lie to people, say it's like salt. No, it's not alloyed. Salt, when you squeeze it, you don't get the sodium off. When you squeeze the amalgam, you get the mercury off. So that tells you right away it's a mixture, just like alcohol and water. If you heat it up, the alcohol comes off. You know, cherries, Jubilee, you can catch them on fire and that sort of stuff. Well, the gold in there makes the mercury come off. So it actually encourages the mercury to leave. The first propeller-driven steamship that had a brass propeller and an iron hull, the propeller fell off because the iron sucked all the metal out of the propeller and the propeller fell apart. So now they got big zinc plates on ships that they change from time to time to keep the propeller from falling off. But dentists don't pay attention to that. No, I'm sure it'll be okay. And, because they don't understand how the body works. Dentistry is taught like a mechanic is taught to work on a car, or a carpenter is taught to build a cabinet. And this is the way we drill on it, this is the way we shape it, this is how you mix this glue, and so forth and so on. It's not about science, it's about mechanics, and that's the problem, is that they make blunders every day in the materials that they put in their teeth, like putting a gold crown in your mouth with your mercury fillings. I've got textbooks that were written in the 50s that say don't do that. Yeah. But their concern was it was going to make the filling crumble. Well, the reason the filling crumbles is because it lost all this mercury to your brain and kidneys. And so the
yeah, no, you know, and it's amazing too because, you know, people, they're trying all these different detox things, right? They're trying this, they're trying that, and it's so useless, Doc, if you have a filling in your mouth, even one. I mean, it's just, you know, we're downstream trying to, you know, this colon cleanser, that, you know, and meanwhile, look at the source, vaporizing mercury day in, day out. And so many people have different metals in their mouth causing this battery effect that you're talking about, you know, all the mercury going right into the brain. And that's why people don't feel well, Doc. That's why.
It is why. When I put people back together, I tried to use it as minimum number of metals or no metals at all. Or if I had to use a metal, I used the same one all the way through so it wouldn't have a dissimilar metal. It was like, you know, you couldn't have a battery that was made out of zinc. You have to have lead and zinc. You have to have a donor donating electrons in the collector. So, but there are ways to do this. It's called biological compatible dentistry. But the important thing for people to understand, especially, is that do not jump out and run out to your dentist and have some idiot start drilling on the teeth. That's the way to get sick faster.
It happens.
It happens. It's happening everywhere. It's happening in 1,000 to 10,000 different offices right this minute as we speak. Yeah. It's just they don't know it. You know, they'll have this problem of the tick or the headache or the whatever, and they won't know what it caused it. So.
And let me caution real fast on my end as the guy who gets it out of the brain, right, and teaches doctors to get it out of the brain. Just because you have the fillings out, good step, and do it right, of course. That's your end. However, the problem is that this inorganic mercury is locked in here, you know. And once the metals come out, I see the body starting to let go of metals around the body, which just becomes a problem. Many end up even more in the brain. However, this inorganic mercury is locked here. And that's where I come in because, again, I get people that have got their fillings out 20 years ago. I still feel bad. Well, that's step one, perhaps. You know, but step two is we got to get it out of the brain safely. So, yeah, you know, go ahead. You had a point you were going to
make. You mentioned the guy with just one filling, and that the machine you were talking about earlier is basically a mercury sniffer. Yeah. And there's different varieties of it. The one we had in the Navy was a General Electric, and it worked on a very pukey system that wouldn't go very low. But the Jerome Gold film came out, and would go down to 1 part per million. When the EPA came up with the standard of 1 part per million for the air, Jerome came up with the machine that would measure 1 part per million. Well, that's why it pegs it, because everybody's breath is, you know, 30 to 100, and that I have measured 100 in the breath of a person with just one filling. There's one little teeny filling, and what we did is I had him brush his teeth, and then we measured it, and it was off the chart. And it's because it was a small filling, the dentist could not get as good a squeeze on it, so they couldn't get all the excess mercury out. So it was just one little filling with a gob of mercury in it. And so, you know, how many fillings doesn't make any difference. What makes a difference is how well your body excretes mercury, and that's, thank mom and dad on that. And then when you stop the exposure, how carefully you were. It's just containment. It's no different than the way that they should dispose of nuclear waste. You contain it, put it in a sealed container, and send it to the dump. The recycler permanently stores it.
One of the aggravating parts is before it goes in your mouth, it's considered hazardous waste, categorized by OSHA as such. Then the moment it goes in your mouth, it's down categorized. Now it's safe. It comes out of your mouth, and now it's hazardous waste again. For years before Congress, they're trying to get this categorized as hazardous waste all the way through. I mean, what's going on there? Is there any hope that that's going to happen?
The politics? You know, it's like, I try not to get involved in politics, but that I try to get involved in science, is that mercury is a deadly poison. It's a heavy metal. And it was a heavy metal when it came into the office as hazardous waste. It's a heavy metal, deadly poison when it left the office as hazardous waste.
What did your mouth say?
What happened in the middle was politics. There's a whole industry, 200,000, 300,000 dentists lined up around the United States making a living putting that stuff in. And who are these dentists? They're people that work for the Army, Navy, Air Force, the Public Health Service, the Indian Service, the welfare dentists, all the people that the government pays to fix teeth because they want to use something that's really crappy and really stupid and really antique because these dentists are so poorly trained they couldn't possibly do anything more modern. Well, I wouldn't go on an airplane if they said, oh, this pilot can't fly the ones with the jet engines. We have to fly the ones with the propellers because he didn't take any continuing education courses. So you got to fly a propeller. Well, come on, that's 100 years of aviation. This is 200 years of stupidity.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I want the modern dentist, the one that, the people say, oh, the new materials don't work. They work better. I can take a laser or a sandblaster or even a drill at low speed, and I take away anything that's rotted and flow in the beautiful, nice, hardened, non-bis-gum-A composite. And I don't take away half your tooth. I take away a pinhead amount. Who wants to have their tooth drilled to smithereens? The reason the fillings in your teeth are so big, it's not because your cavities are so big, it's because the material they're sticking in it is thick. So they drill big holes so they can get the thick material in the hole. That's stupid. Why would you take part of me away so you could use the wrong thing in my teeth?
Hey, and I want people to understand that hazardous waste, that's a silver amalgam filling that comes into the dental office that is considered hazardous waste. The filling, because it has mercury in it, and when it comes out, that mercury filling has to be handled as hazardous waste, but yet when it's in your mouth, it's considered safe. Here's the other point I want to make too is, that person with that one filling in their mouth saying, I'm fine. It won't come out of here ever until that one filling comes out. So those of you who are trying to do all this mercury detox and you still have a speck of filling in, I'm telling you, it won't let go here. So, it has to come out right, and it has to come out of here correctly as well. Well, I could go on and on and on and on about this topic because, this is what people don't get. And even in the health community, they still have fillings and then they take them out and they haven't done anything about the mercury in the brain, Doc, and that's what got my life back. But we do have to move into fluoride because when I was at the lecture that you and I both lectured at, I was just in love with this fluoride message that you brought because people don't understand. Everybody's being exposed to this toxin, not to mention this toxin. I'm telling you, if you think it correctly, the ADA is out to kill people, and I'm not being a conspiracy theorist. I think that they've just backed into this thing. So I'm not even saying that they're trying, but they're killing people between the mercury in the fillings. Now talk about fluoride, Doc, because wow, is this a deception to the people?
Well, it is, and the politicians picked the perfect front guy for toxic materials because the dentists have no training in toxicology. You ask a dentist, how does fluoride work, and they say they make the enamel harder. Well, the research shows that that's not true. It works because it makes the germs that happen to be living around your teeth sick. Well, how does it not make you sick? Well, it does the same to you as it does to the germ. It's just you're bigger than the germ is. So we're fed a pack of lies in our dental, quote, education. And then what they do is they try to manipulate the science to make it appear as though the lies were not so incorrect. That there is no scientific study valid by today's standard that's ever shown adding fluoride to the drinking water of an animal, human, or rats that reduce tooth decay. That is a total BS from the get-go, and they've proven it in 3 different court cases where they actually went to trial, and all 3 court cases determined that there is little evidence of benefit. It has seemed to increase cancer death rates. That's different than causing cancer. It does that too. And it aggravates existing illness. If you don't have good kidneys, and maybe you've got amalgam fillings and your kidneys are beginning to fail, it accumulates higher and you end up with arthritis, joint pain, all that stuff. All kinds of bone problems because that's where the fluoride accumulates. So why would you brush your teeth with something that causes inflammation? And that's what it causes. When you brush your gums, you get inflammation in there, you accelerate periodontal disease. So there's absolutely no reason to ever allow that stuff in your house, much less your mouth or your child's mouth. It's a poison. It says that on the label now. It should have said it in 1960 when they came out with it. That label was not added till 1997. And it says, keep out of reach of children. It's the amount used in swallowing, which is a pea-sized amount, call the Poison Control Center right away. That they still need a skull and crossbones on there, and then they would have an accurate label. But fluoride is being added to our public water supplies.
Yeah.
And Flint, Michigan was in the news recently, and they were saying the water was acidic. Let's see. Are they adding hydrofluoric acid to that water? Uh-huh. Isn't hydrofluoric acid acidic? Uh-huh. Do you have to add base when you add that? Uh-huh. Did they add the base? Uh-uh. It costs money. But we have to give the little kids their acid poison stuff from the pollution scrubbers of the phosphate fertilizer mining industry. It's not fluoride. It is raw untreated hazardous waste from the mining industry. So who says that's good for you? Well, the mining industry says it is. And that everybody backs away. If you try to get the manufacturer that say it's safe and effective, they'll back away. Oh, well, no, that's not our responsibility. It's your city council that decided to put that in the water, not us. We're just selling you a product. And so nobody wants to put their name on saying this is a good idea. But there is $100 million a year coming out of Washington, D.C. to promote it. Every state in the United States has a U.S. Public Health Service. The dental division of the U.S. Public Health Service thinks their job is to promote fluoridation. Sure. The CDC has 35 people who think their job is to promote fluoridation. Will you work out the salaries, the retirement plans, the vacation days for 50 states with probably 10 or 20, say 500 people in the 50 states plus 35. So you got 500 people making doctor salaries and retirements, lying to the American public. And they know they're lying, and you can tell they know they're lying because they will not debate. They will not debate such issues as what the actual substance is in the water and what dose is safe for an infant. And so when we go through the math, is that the infant is getting 500 times more fluoride on tap water formula baby food than they would on the mother's breast. Do you think God was wrong? Oh, that baby didn't have that wonderful elixir that the dentists say is good for it.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. God's not wrong, but what comes out of the woman's what the baby's supposed to be eating. And if we do put something in the public water supply that overdoses that baby with a deadly poison, fluoride's a deadly poison. Don't take my word for it. People have died from fluoridation chemicals. One of my videos that's on my YouTube channel is the secret story of fluoride. And it was a water worker. And the pump that puts this stuff in is about a car battery size. It's a small thing, and it quit. And so he went to disconnect it, and they keep a spare around because the fluoride eats everything. So they went to disconnect it to put another one on. He released the pressure, and he unscrewed the knob, and it had pressure internally, and it spritzed him with maybe at the most a half a cup of the stuff. And, you know, the shower's broken. He raced to the other room, and he took a shower and washed it all off. And it's the end of his shift, and boss said, "Oh, you can go ahead and go home. It's no problem. That stuff won't hurt you at all." And he didn't feel good on his way home, so he saw the hospital sign, so he turned into the hospital. He would have died if he hadn't gone to the hospital. His heart had already slowed down to 40 beats a minute. He was going into cardiac arrest, and that's what happens to me. He's still crippled to this day. And that's just, they're ignorant. You can't have water workers dosing the population with hazardous waste. It's insane.
Two questions I have is, number one, how did this occur? Number two, what filtration mediums can take it out? If your water has and how do you know if your water has fluoride?
You call the water company, and they'll tell you they're required by law to measure it. How did this come about? It came about because it's a lie. That when they built the bomb in World War II, that they created the phosphate fertilizer mining industry. What they did is they ran bulldozers in the mountain, they picked up limestone, and they took out of 100 yards of limestone, they got a thimbleful of what they call yellow cake. It's basically uranium hexafluoride. And so when you have hundreds and thousands of tons of leftover debris, what do you do with it? And so they had gypsum, which we build drywall, and we build our houses out of it. We have phosphate, which you throw on your tomatoes to make them big and fat and tasteless. So, but if you're agribiz and you want to sell food to people by the pound, so you throw this out, and then the plant sucks up water. It makes plants thirsty. The phosphate's not good for the plant. It just makes the plant thirsty. So now we can sell water by the pound. Whoa, that's good. And so they had leftover hydrofluorosilicic acid. Well, what do we do with that? And so they said, let's tell the people it's good for their children's teeth and put it in the water supplies. And that's the source of 1945. There was a meeting where they discussed this with Harold Hodge, the mass murderer of the Manhattan Project. He's guilty of injecting 48 people with plutonium, uranium, thorium, radioactive lead, civilians during peacetime who died of it. So mass murderer, 48. Harold Hodge, H. Trinley Dean, the father of fluoridation, General Grove, the head of the Manhattan Project, the head of the Food and Drug Administration, and the head of the Public Health Service all had a meeting in 1945, and the minutes of that meeting were classified as top secret. In 1995, the minutes were released and immediately snatched back by the United States government. Well, what did those 5 people talk about? We don't know, but we know what happened the next day is an army of dentists from the U.S. Public Health Service fanned out across the country saying that fluoride had been discovered as wonderfully good for teeth. Well, what research did they do the night before? None. They had a meeting with Harold Hodge, and they pulled the national security card. We need to get rid of this stuff. We're going to put it at a little low level. It's good for the kids. Won't hurt them a bit. Well, now we know it's not good for the kids. It does hurt them a lot. But it was a lie. And that's why they won't debate. So they just waved their arm. Oh, it's proven safe. So the Food and Drug Administration issued a warning letter to a company called Kirkman, not like Kirkman. And what they said was that they had to cease and desist production, sales, distribution of mislabeled, misbranded, unapproved drugs. And what terrible unapproved drugs did they have? Oh, fluoride vitamins. Fluoride vitamins and fluoride tablets are available in every pharmacy throughout the United States. I have a copy of that letter that everybody should walk into their CVS pharmacy and say, do you sell unapproved drugs? And the pharmacist will jump out of his skin, because that's like saying, are you a criminal and guilty of fraud and misbehavior? He'll lose his license for selling unapproved drugs. And they'll, oh, no, I'm not selling unapproved drugs. And then you hand them the letter and say, oh, then do you carry any of these kind of products like fluoride vitamins? Fluoride tablets? Oh, I guess you do carry unapproved drugs then, don't you? That'll stop the sales of that immediately. If you want to get mercury out of dentistry, tell all the dental assistants to contact OSHA and tell them they're not being protected when exposed to mercury. OSHA will inspect within 2 weeks. But you have to be a current employee, can be anonymous, but you have to be a current employee at that place of business. And you don't have to tell, just keep your mouth shut. You don't have to say anything, but say, I'm drilling out amalgam and I don't have a respirator and I have exposed skin and I don't have a cap for my hair and I got, yada, yada, yada. And there's no ventilation in the room and there's no exhaust and yada, yada. Their laws are very specific. When you're going to be exposed to something, you need to be given informed consent.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the protective equipment is provided for you. The PPE is provided by your employer. No dentist.
Oh, hey, Meredith.
Lost him. I'm frozen.
My screen's jumping for some reason, Meredith. Is it jumping on your end?
A little bit. I think Dr. Kennedy seems to be frozen.
Yeah, and my screen's going like this.
There he is. Oh.
Okay.
Can't hear you, Dr. Kennedy.
I wouldn't say anything.
Oh, there you are. Oh, okay. All right.
I'm listening to this.
My screen's jumping, so I didn't know if my signal was coming through. So
Your voice is good. Your voice is good and strong.
Okay, good.
I remember as a kid, too, just in elementary school, I had lived in town, but I remember the kids that had lived in the country in the beginning of the day had to come up, and the teacher gave them fluoride tablets to take in the morning. And I'm wondering if that's still going on in schools.
So what's wrong with that, according to the FDA letter, is that the product is, if it's going to be used, it has to be used topically, and that never, unless the person is examined by a licensed physician or dentist who can prescribe the drug, determined that they needed it, and then wrote a prescription for it, which is dispensed. So then they got to go to a pharmacy and get it. Well, if you go to a pharmacy, you won't find those tablets. Well, you will find those tablets, and that's what the FDA is trying to shut down, 41 years late, but they're still trying to shut it down. But the only form that has FDA approval is a toothpaste. that's high in fluoride or a mouthwash that's high in fluoride. And what you do is you swish it around and spit it out. But you don't have the teacher dispensing that. You have a doctor prescribing it for the person that has rotted teeth. And that's not even the best way to stop rotted teeth. I wrote a whole book on the subject. There's lots of things that work better. But even if we were going to use that, we can't use it inappropriately. And that's all they're doing in the school system, is they're using it inappropriately. Now think about it. Fluoride causes neurological impairment. It is a neurotoxin. It's on the same order of magnitude as lead and arsenic and mercury in neurotoxicity. So we give kids, get up in the morning, they brush their teeth with a fluoridated toothpaste, swallow some of it, give them some fluoridated orange juice that we made up with the tap water, send them off to school, and they give them a swish and spit program at school, and then they can't learn to read and write. And we say, boy, those kids just aren't like they used to be. No, they aren't like they used to be, and it's because you're poisoning their brains with toxins. Stop it.
So sad.
Yeah, it's so sad. It's remarkable to me that we're still doing this here in the 21st century. The dental industry really has made massive mistakes. Unknowingly, knowingly, combination, who knows. I do have two dental questions for you because, there's great debate about titanium. Are you for it, against it? Are you in between? I know, just like you said, we don't want as much, we want to minimize metal. But, if you're going to get a titanium post in, I know that some of my clients watching this I'm so glad he asked that. So what's your feeling on that?
Well, there's several problems with titanium. Titanium is not a nice metal. It's a very aggressive metal, and that if you put that post in there and you take a pin and scratch it, the lab says. So how do they get the post to stay in? Is it titanium oxide, which is the rust on the surface, and it's held on about as tight as the rust on a nail. But the body doesn't see the titanium oxide, and so it'll do osseous integration. The bone will actually grow around it, and the thing will get solid. If you look at your hand, that the skin is attached tightly to your fingernail. That's called an epithelial attachment. You can take your hand, if you don't have any cuts on it, you can take your hand and stick it in a bucket of doo-doo, and you won't get an infection in your bloodstream, because your skin is your major protection against microorganisms getting in your body. That's why, if you cut your finger, your mother immediately started putting iodine on the cut and cleaning it up. The titanium rod sticking out of your gum into your mouth does not form an epithelial attachment. So wherever those rods appear, germs from your mouth ingress around those rods, down around the bone, into your bloodstream. So if nothing else, I wouldn't want titanium in my mouth, because it allows germs from my mouth to get into my bloodstream. Why is that a problem? Well, those germs are implicated in everything that goes wrong with your body, including your heart valves and your lungs. If you get pneumonia, and joint pain, yada, yada, yada. So you don't want germs running through your body. That's the bad deal. What if you have a titanium knee? Well, that's a different deal, because that titanium is totally surrounded by the skin, so that you don't have the same problem as bacterial ingress, egress, but you do have trouble that if for some other reason you have an injury, the bacteria will find that, and they'll set up bivouac in that joint. That's why people that have lots of joints replaced or valves replaced, that they always tell them that when they go to the dentist, be sure and get preloaded with antibiotics. There's a better way to do that. Is that when you go to the dentist, you disinfect the mouth before you start working on it. Have you ever gone to a doctor and you had a splinter in your hand or something like that, and they immediately started working on it without slapping a bunch of iodine on it? No, nobody does that. That's stupid, because you're going to spread bacteria to the body. Yeah. Well, dentistry is stupid. It spreads bacteria to the body. There's studies showing that having your teeth cleaned, 100% of those spreads bacteria to your bloodstream. Having your wisdom teeth extracted, 100% of them gave you what's called a septicemia, a shower of bacteria in your bloodstream. Well, you can get away with that a lot, but some people are going to die from it. So, it's just as simple as medicine. Is it before you intervene, disinfect the area, and you can do that. That's one of the protocols in my book on how to save your teeth. Is the way you stop gum disease is you disinfect the gums. And the dentist says, oh, you can't do that. Well, don't tell me. I did it for 30 years. You certainly can do that. It's not a problem. It's that you can't do it by, sitting in your armchair and saying, I wish they'd go away. You have to actually get in there and go to work and clean them out and flush them out and all that stuff. But it's easy to clean up a mouth, and it keeps your teeth for a lifetime. You don't have to lose your teeth. You don't have to have oral infection.
True.
But you also don't need metals in your mouth. So that's
exactly right. So and then I want to not let you get away without answering this question. The filtration media to take out fluoride, because we're going to get that. People are going to say, well, wait a minute, I researched. Yeah, they're putting fluoride in my water. What do we do?
Well, the problem is none of them work. So all of them work a little bit. None of them work for a long term. Is that if you're trying to do a whole house filtration system or something where you can take a shower or sit in your jacuzzi, they don't have a system that's going to work for you. The ingredients that go in the filter that attract fluoride is alum, activated aluminum, and the other is bone char, and that there's different bone chars from different parts of the world. Apparently, Brimark from Scotland has a much greater capacity than the stuff from India. So I would tell you, if you get a Brimark filter, you could remove the fluoride from your water with a Brimark or activated aluminum filter. That I distilled water and then add the minerals back in, because the only way. But there's a lot of stuff. It's not just the fluoride. Is it?
RO? Does RO take some out?
Say it again?
Does RO take any out? Reverse osmosis? A little bit.
Not very effectively. RO, they always want to show you. They want to start with 8 and show you they can get it down to 2. And so, see, we have an 80% reduction. But if you start with 1. Will it take it down to 0.2? No. It has trouble on the lower end. So when you're working with 1 part per million, RO does not remove typically more than 50% maybe. And then the fluoride eats the membranes. So the membranes go bad, and you don't know that they're gone bad. And so you're basically running it through a machine that doesn't do anything good anyway. So the fluoride molecule is actually smaller than the water molecule. So any filter is only going to filter it by attaching it, rather than a porous thing. And so RO is porosity. You're not going to get them out with a porosity. Distillation, where you turn it to steam and bring it back in the form of water, gets rid of 100% of it. Filters like activated aluminum and bone char will remove it. But I tell people that protect your water supply and then protect your community. Go to work on the community, because there's no legitimate excuse to add fluoride to the water supply. It overdoses the baby severely. 66% of the babies on tap water formula have dental fluorosis. That tells you they were overdosed with fluoride. 66%. Well, not 100%. It's not debatable. It causes funny-looking spotted teeth. If you were to slice those children up and look at their kidneys and their brain and their arteries, they are also damaged. We can show rats. If you give a rat 1 part per million fluoride, you end up with a damaged brain in that rat in just 52 weeks, 1 year. And so the likelihood that putting this chemical in the water supply is good for our country, good for our children, or good for anybody, the only people it's really good for are the people that generate it. And it's coming from China, Mexico, Japan, Belgium, and Florida.
Wow.
So it's a gift of our water supply to major industries around the world. Where does this stuff come from? The phosphate fertilizer mining industry, which is agribiz. So we've given up responsibility for drugs in our water. The FDA says it's an unapproved drug. So what we're adding to our water supply is an unapproved drug that's contaminated with waste, arsenic, lead, cadmium, mercury, and a potpourri of other bad things. It's a mining industry, for heaven's sakes. It's the mine waste. Yeah. So we're adding that as an elixir for the babies in our country, and it's demonstrably increasing the infant mortality rate. And it's increasing the lead levels in the children. It sucks lead into their bodies. It's a chelating agent. It sucks lead into their bodies. So you take lead and add it to mercury. If you watch Fluoride Gate, I made a big point about Schubert. Schubert found if you took an inconsequential dose of mercury and an infinitesimal dose of lead and gave it to the rats simultaneously, killed all the rats.
Wow.
So lead and mercury together are 1,000 times more toxic than either one alone. We all got lead poisoning because we had leaded gasoline. So that we all got mercury fillings, so we got exactly what Schubert showed. We got the problem of lead and mercury in our bodies today, so we need to stop exposing ourselves to lead and mercury. It's that simple.
That's our message. Listen, I have hundreds of doctors that I train around the country. I tell you, we see lead and mercury, and particularly lead, because there's just so much exposure. We grew up in the lead generation. Our parents grew up in the lead generation. When you put lead and mercury together, it's a recipe for disaster. Add fluoride. Oh, and then add glyphosate. Monsanto, this reminds me of the fluoride industry, right? It allows it to cross into the membranes faster, into the brain faster. It's a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely a recipe for disaster, and it's destroying our country. All these patriots run around with a ribbon on their lapel. They need to say, if you really care about this country, you're going to stop stupid stuff right away. It doesn't take a lot of money. All you got to do is walk over and turn the switch off. Then you'll have the trouble of disposing of the hazardous waste because no other country in the world wants it. But at least we can stop poisoning the children and begin to move in a sane direction. Oral hygiene is what stops tooth decay. Give every child in the city a toothbrush if you want to stop tooth decay, and then take all the candy and throw it away.
Yeah, good luck with that. Do you think that is there any hope, that we could see a national retreat from this fluoride issue? And what states have wised up? Are there any?
None. The last, all of them are getting knocked off one at a time. Divide and destroy. Is that California was 48 out of the 50 states, because every time the issue came up, we voted out. San Diego's law against it, and we got it in our water right now. And that the reason we keep losing is because they've got $100 million a year going into the pockets of lobbyists and through the Cargill and the other companies that have fluoride to get rid of, money laundered through the dental associations. Where do the dentists get all this money? Well, it's not coming out of the dentist's pocket. It's coming out of industry, giving it to them, and having them go out and lobby for it, telling us how good it is. And so ignorance is bliss, but we're not going to stop. Oregon, Portland, just voted it out for the 3rd time. Davis, California, voted it out for the 8th time. Why do we have to say no, 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 no? Is because that $100 million a year coming out of Washington, D.C., I could be low on that $100 million, by the way. I'm just guesstimating based upon those 500 people I know that are making a living doing this. I think it's probably a lot bigger than that, because there's a lot of other money going there. Yeah. But it's totally phony. It doesn't help anybody. It makes money for industry, and that's basically the only way we're going to stop this is when we make Congress aware of the fact that they're standing there with buck naked, and we know they're cheating and they're taking money from these industries, especially the dentists, to poison our water supply. That's all they're doing.
Yeah, follow the money trail every time. If you take away the money, you'll solve the problem. Bottom line, every time. Well, I know we're out of time, Meredith, and I'm sure you have pressing questions. God, what a great show, Doc. I mean, I know our viewers and listeners are just like hanging on with information. Hey, how do they get to your YouTube station? Because your video, I mean, all the videos, they need to see this stuff on fluoride because they need to show their friends and family, and also on amalgam. So how do we get them there?
My YouTube webpage is David Kennedy DDS, all one word, DAVIDKENNEDY DDS, just all one word. You Google David Kennedy or Google Smoking Teeth Kennedy, and you'll go to my webpage. And then go to the homepage, and I've divided them up: perio, fluoride, mercury, and other topics. Poison horses is in there. That's the other one that gets everybody going, because apparently they don't care if you poison children, but don't poison the horse. 2 things that I want your listeners to do.
Okay.
1, get a copy of the Kirkman, KIRKMAN warning letter. You can get it from me. You can get it in the Fluoride Action Network. Go to our YouTube channel and blog something and ask me for the letter. Send me an email address. And take that to your local pharmacy and ask them if they're distributing, selling, marketing unapproved drugs. And then just give them the letter. 2, if there's a dentist that's working for somebody, or a dental assistant, or a dental hygienist that's in an office that uses mercury and they don't have a spacesuit, that's the only way you can handle mercury, is in a spacesuit with a respirator with carbon filters, or alternative, like a fireman going into a fire. You should look like the fireman going into the fire. Yep. If you don't look like that, they're not in compliance with OSHA. if they don't have that Jerome sniffer, they're not in compliance with OSHA. The employer is obligated to measure the facility every time there's an incident. If they don't own the equipment, they're not compliant. Every dentist should have one of those, and they should have an assistant running around with it every time they're doing a procedure. I did, and I can keep that machine at 0 through the procedure. It's possible, but I didn't learn it in dental school, I can assure you that. So there's 2 things. Letter to your pharmacy. Get all your friends that are dental assistants to file anonymous complaints with OSHA if they don't have a respirator and a spacesuit.
Wow. Yeah, those are 2 big things. And so, Meredith, make sure that those people get his website just clearly. So, one more time. Say it one more time.
David Kennedy, all one word. DAVIDKENNEDY DDS.
Like
dentist.
Yeah.
DDS, like a doctor of dental surgery. And so David Kennedy DDS, all one word, and you'll get right to my YouTube channel.
It was hard to hear that, right, Meredith? I mean, at the end there. So
I cut out a little bit. And as I mentioned when I read your bio too, Dr. Kennedy, everyone can watch your Smoking Teeth documentary for free at IAOMT.org, which is also where we direct people to find a biological dentist in your area. You can you can look up your area by zip code. And then you can also view your Fluoride Gate, your documentary on fluoride at fluoridegate.org. So go, make sure to check those out as well. And I was just thinking, Dr. Pompa, too, with the challenges with mercury, lead, fluoride. We talk a lot about the detox product too, and I just didn't know if you wanted to mention as one of the solutions to these challenges as well. That might be a possibility.
We need to put Dr. Kenny, in touch with Dr. Nicholas, who developed a product. I try them all. I get everything brought to me, and I had all the liquid zeolites brought to me, and we just couldn't find that they could cross the gut. They didn't work, right? We did all these tests. I know David Quigg, and but this guy hydrolyzed a particle that crosses into the cell. A very unique invention. And so we've been using it now for a couple years, and with outstanding results. So it gets into the brain, and we put it with some fat solubles as well, and make it go even deeper. So yeah, and it's part of our system, And again, I don't want anyone to run out and try this detox. That's why we're training doctors around the country to do true cellular detox and get this stuff out of our brain safely. But Doc, we'll make sure that you see this particle. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, that's great. And listen, everyone, go to his site, watch these videos, show them to your friends and family. If you love them, if they still have a filling in their mouth, you add fluoride and the lead. I mean, come on. This is why people don't feel well. Bottom line, everyone's focused on the little stuff. It's this big stuff. He said it, the lead, mercury, fluoride, we had glyphosate. Come on, these are the big things that are making people sick. Doc, you do a great job of bringing this message, and just so appreciative of that. And we're going to have you on other shows, please. And I would love to have you at one of our seminars, Meredith. What a wealth of knowledge in this area. And I do have one more question. Where do I get one of the mercury sniffers? Where do I buy one of those? I want to show that at my seminars.
Well, you're not going to like the price, but you can get them from Jerome. Jerome Instruments, Arizona Instruments, Jerome. What the title of the instrument is, a Jerome Gold Film Mercury Vapor Analyzer. And it's they used to cost about $5,000, and I think they're up to $7,500 now. And they're very handy, and they do require some maintenance. They're high tech, but the other thing that people might want to get, and it's cheaper. For about $40, you can get a colorimeter that tests fluoride levels, and it only tests it in water because it's using color. So you put Coca-Cola in there, it's fluoride in Coca-Cola, but it won't measure it because there's so much brown juice in there, so it uses color. So you can only do clear things, and so you can measure the fluoride with a $40 colorimeter.
And where do you buy those?
Amazon.com.
Okay, write it down. Buy me one.
People want to contact me, have them contact me through Fluoride Gate. Is that if you can spell Fluoride Gate, that when you blog or send some information there, it comes directly to me, but it gives me a way to reply to your email, and so that's a good way for people to get a hold of me is through Fluoride Gate, and
And Meredith,
Google me. You can find my email. So.
Dr. David Kennedy, Google him. Smoking tooth. Man, there's a million ways to your stuff. Exactly. And Meredith, I want the business to buy me one of those, okay? Because I want to do these demonstrations. But Doc, we're gonna have you on again. You know, and look how interesting the doc was.
Yeah, put her right sleep.
Never moved the whole time. Remember I said she'd get bored? She sat there on my lap the whole time listening to your words because she knows this is how you change lives, right? But anyways, listen, you're a life changer. You're changing lives. We got to get more connected with him, Meredith. Make sure we stay connected. Have him on other shows. This is just the beginning of this topic. Trust me, we can piggyback right in part 1, part 2. So thank you again, Doc, and I'll turn it over to you, Meredith.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kennedy. What a wealth of information, and we are so grateful for you for being a fellow truth seeker and for getting this information out to the public, because a lot of it, I think, it's just people don't know, you know, and this is part of the movement to wake people up as to just all of the really terrible things that are going on, but also to empower them to make some change. So thank you so much for everything you do, and this is us, Meredith, signing off for Cellular Healing TV. Everyone, thanks for tuning in this week, and we'll catch you next week.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Meredith.